Hello. Well, I wanted to talk about this article here. Medical school professor removed by UPMC as fellowship director over white paper. So far as I've been able to work out, UPMC is a sort of health plan or a big organisation. Used to be, I don't know whether it's still going, there in California there was something called the Kaiser Foundation that owned or ran hospitals and a health plan of its own. And here it says UPMC, a world-renowned healthcare provider. Well, I don't know about world-renowned because I've never heard of it. And insurer, Pittsburgh-based UPMC, is inventing new models of accountable, cost-effective, patient-centred care. Now, this looks to me like some sort of a national health service run privately, and it might be very good. And this might be the way forward. I don't know, but certainly not if they are acting like this. This article in the University Times. Just a minute, I'm going to cough. All right. Medical school professor removed by UPMC as fellowship director over white paper. UPMC removed Norman Wang, a cardiologist. Let's have a look and see what Norman Wang looks like. There's Norman Wang. All right. A cardiologist and an associate professor of medicine from a fellowship program after he penned a white paper criticising affirmative action efforts in the medical field. Well, listen, I criticise affirmative action as well. If there's somebody slicing into me or prescribing dangerous drugs, I want to be bloody sure that's the best person available and not somebody who just got the job because of a certain ethnic background. Wang was removed by UPMC from his position as Programme Director of the Electrophysiology Fellowship following social media backlash against the paper. And here we have the problem, don't we? He wrote a paper which was described as a white paper, which means it's a sort of think piece. And there was a social media backlash, which means a bunch of people who have nothing to do better than to sit on their computers, sit at their computers and find things to be offended about. And this had an effect on UPMC's hiring practices. You know, I wonder where their balls got to. But it looks like UPMC, the first thing you have to do is have them removed, psychologically. In the paper, originally published in the Journal of the American Heart Association on March the 24th, Wang argued that affirmative action efforts through diversity, inclusion and equity in medicine have been largely unsuccessful because of a, quote, limited qualified applicant pool and legal challenges to the use of race and ethnicity in admissions to institutions of higher education. Now, let's just put this in a more insulting way. Limited qualified applicant pool means that people of minority ethnic backgrounds, let's be blunt, like black people or maybe Latinos, he's certainly not talking about Chinese, Japanese and Koreans, is he? Limited qualified applicant pool means that there are fewer black and Latino people who are applying for this job. And that might be for one of two reasons. The first is that they have the idea that they're not good enough, even if they are, because society has told them so, and this does happen. So it happened to me. When I applied to university, it didn't occur to me to apply for either Oxford or Cambridge because I was a girl from a middle-class family in Yorkshire, and I'd been told for most of my life that I was really quite dim anyway. And so, I didn't think of shooting for the stars. I went for Manchester, which was, as far as I was concerned, the very, very best to which I could apply. And actually, Manchester is a very good university. I went to Stanford afterwards, and Stanford was certainly at no higher level than Manchester, that's for sure. But I might have tried for Oxford or Cambridge as well. I just didn't think I could. And this could be something to do with the limited applicant pool, and that's not the fault of the black people or the Latino people who don't apply. It's to do with their families around them who tell them stuff like, why bother going to university anyway, you get more money as a car mechanic, which is probably true anyway. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is the possibility that the black people and the Latino people are not as intelligent in general. And that's a possibility. It seems to, some statistics seem to bear this out. This is not supposed to be spoken about. But again, I have to emphasize, this does not mean that every black person or every Latino person is more stupid than every white person. We're talking here about a bell curve. But that would mean when the bell curve shifts that there will be fewer who can apply. So we've got this part of it, which is very incendiary. And then the legal challenges to the use of race and ethnicity in admissions. This has come up recently when it was discovered that Harvard was actually telling East Asian people, people of Japanese, Chinese and Korean background who were well and away the best candidates, but telling them they weren't good enough and putting other ethnic minorities ahead of them simply because they wanted to even out the figures. This was discovered quite recently, and now places like Harvard are getting sued. And can you imagine the awful effect on somebody's life? Let's say a young woman gets really good results, applies to Harvard for a medical degree, and then is told she's not good enough. And she goes to a secondary university and spends the rest of her life thinking, why wasn't I good enough? What was wrong? I thought I'd done it all right. I'd worked really hard. What did I do wrong? That's always there at the back of their mind. And then 20 years later or whatever, to discover you were ditched because your eyes had a bit of a slant. That is just awful. Anyway, and of course, I suppose Norman Wang would have had some sort of an interest in this particular aspect of it. So it might have hit very close to home. Ultimately, all who aspire to a profession in medicine and cardiology must be assessed as individuals on the basis of their personal merits, not their racial and ethnic identities. I'd say there's nothing more reasonable than that, especially if you happen to be on the receiving end of the medical attention from this particular person. Wang also said in the paper that there exists no empirical evidence by accepted standards for causal inference to support the mantra that diversity saves lives. I can't see how it would. In his conclusion, he said, long-term academic solutions and excellence should not be sacrificed for short-term demographic optics. Oh, and he's used the right word there, optics. And optics is what this is all about. The JAHA redacted the paper in August after backlash erupted on social media. So here we have, I don't know who JAHA is. I'll find out and I'll put it up there so that you know as well. Redacted the paper. So they actually took information out of that paper after a social media storm. What sort of scientists were the people who were erupting on social media? I'll bet you they were mostly, media graduates, people who went to university to do, I don't know what, gender studies or grievance studies or something. That's what it would be. Are they all Medicos? I'll bet not. And JAHA, which I assume is some sort of a scientific assessment organisation, redacted the paper on the strength of this. Wang declined to comment. I'm sure he did. On August the 6th, Senior Vice Chancellor for the Health Sciences and Dean of the School of Medicine, Ananta Shekhar, released a statement. Ananta Shekhar released a statement on Twitter that disavowed the views taken by Wang in the article. And this is what Ananta Shekhar said. A peer-reviewed journal recently published an article authored by a member of the university community that expressed views against equality and equity and inclusivity. No, actually, that wasn't against equity and inclusivity. It was against the exact opposite. Because if you have two people with 140 IQ and then you take somebody with 120 IQ and put them ahead because they have a different skin colour, that is not either equity or inclusivity. That's just stupidity. These views do not reflect the values of the University of Pittsburgh and its School of Medicine, or our proud pursuit of disseminating knowledge for the public good. Well, you're not disseminating knowledge for the public good. And you are actually shutting down a discussion. You see, Dr. Wang might be wrong. And if he is, then what we should do is discuss what he's talking about and reach our conclusions in the scientific community. No, redact the paper. Oh, that makes it all go away, doesn't it? He added that the Pitt School of Medicine is a top medical school. Well, not for much longer if you do this sort of thing. And the gravitas and honour of leading by example is a responsibility that we do not take lightly. Okay, well, that's it. America is rotting from the centre. You lot have to do something about that, because I just want to point something out. There are societies where your family or your tribe counts for more than your abilities. I'll name a couple of them. Somalia, Arabia, North Korea. These, and almost with very few exceptions, most African countries. Now you tell me how successful these are as societies. Even Saudi Arabia, where again your family counts for where you actually go in many cases, they have to be bailed out continuously by American army support because their army is no good, or they have to buy in mercenaries. Because their army is no good, because their army commanders, many of them, are to do with family. Yeah, they are not successful societies. And if you are going to start down this path in America, you're going to end up just as unsuccessful as all these other places. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.